Coral Sea Solitaire. The title is quite clear, so you know exactly where we are and how many players are going to play here. This is part of the book game line by Worthington Games, and if you're familiar with these titles, you're going to have usually each game is a double page spread with one representing the map, where you will be marking stuff, and the other one representing events that happen that regulate the behavior of your opponent, and possibly also where you mark other stuff. And here, so we have a lot of different scenarios and so different situations that will occur around the Coral Sea situation in the Pacific in World War II. You will be playing a number of turns until either you meet the victory conditions or you reach the last turn of the game. At that point, you evaluate whether you lost or you won. And each scenario has different victory conditions that, however, will be based around scoring victory points and or sinking enemy carriers and or stopping the convoy that is trying, the Japanese convoy that is trying to reach Port Moresby, and each turn you will mark a dot there at the end of the turn to represent the movement of the convoy, while your task forces and the enemy task forces will be represented by letters that you will be drawing here, and then you'll draw the lines to indicate where they move. And you will be controlling the Lexington and the Yorktown task force, and you'll be fighting against a variable number of Japanese task force represented by letters A, B, and possibly C. Now, you're supposed to write on this book, and I don't. I like to preserve my book games. In some of the other ones, what I did was to use a sheet of plastic, transparent plastic, and then I would write on the dry erase marker. And if you play that way, again, you stick the sheet here, and then you're holding the event page like so, like a screen, which also has this advantage that, well, you're holding the thing like that. But here you need to mark things on this page, but then the damage that is taken by the enemy strike forces is marked up there, which of course means back to the old trick, photocopies. And playing with photocopies also has the advantage that now I can lay them flat in front of me, and it's a lot more convenient. You will also need to add 2 dice, so different color, ideally black and white, but as long as you can tell them apart is fine. You designate them as black and white, and of course you'll need a writing implement, pen or pencil. For this video, I'm still going to show you from this because it's prettier that way, so pretty colors, but again, photocopies is the way they actually play the game. So you're going to have, as I said, victory conditions. At the beginning of the game, you will roll dice, and again, a black and a white to place the enemy task forces. And so you cross-reference the result of the black die with the result of the white die, and you will write the letter corresponding to the task force. In this scenario here, you got two task force, which are A and B. So you're ready there. And then you'll decide where you're going to place your Lexington and Yorktown task force in column 8. And then you get started. Each turn, you will make your first decisions by choosing the direction in which you will search. Now, the map is divided into search grids, and these are the big squares. Each is divided into movement squares, and those are the 4 small squares. That's very important because you need to make sure you don't mix them up. When you're marking here, what you're marking here is the direction in which you will search, meaning the search large square, the search grid, in which you will try to make contact with the enemies. At the end of movement, you will be searching in the search grid in which you are, and then also in the one that you marked there. For example, if you marked west, a little W here at the end of the turn, well, after movement, I'm here, then I'll be searching Japanese enemies here and here because I marked west. If I mark north and I'm here, it'll be here and here. So you commit to where you're going to send your search planes trying to figure out where the enemies are. You'll also commit a number of fighters that will be assigning to combat air patrol. And so you simply write the number there. The number cannot exceed the number of fighters that you have. As you can imagine, you'll be marking these boxes to indicate how many bombers you lose, how many fighters you lose, and how many hits your actual carrier is taken. If it goes down to 0, it sinks, which is of course horribly bad, but it may happen. This is a pretty brutal game. So commit, make the decision, commit into the direction which you will search and how many air patrol points you're keeping in the air. Then, well, the Japanese go. Then you will roll 2 dice, again a black and a white, and then you will resolve the corresponding event, meaning you will implement whatever the text says, things such as eliminate American fighters by 1 for each task force in there, roll 2 dice and apply the results below in the shaded grid, and so on and so forth. So you will implement that event, but then you also see what happens here. That tells you where the Japanese forces are moving. So for example, if the A is there, now I know it moves 1 spot to the square to the right. And this one, it will move 3, 1, 2, 3. And sometimes they become a little more creative. And that's that for that part, for moving. After that, you perform your own movement, and after that, everybody's searching for the enemy. The event that you use for movement also tells you the direction or directions in which that enemy task force is searching. So just like you, suppose that the enemy task force A at this point is right there, then it'll be searching west and south. So west and south. And if B at the end of movement is, say, there, that little square there, you see that one? That's what I'm pointing towards. Well, it'll be searching north, so it'll be searching there. What happens is that after we move, we see people that are searching. And if a carrier has an enemy in their search box, in the search direction, then combat happens. It may be that one has search on the other, say I'm here and I'm searching west, my opponent is here and searching north, then I found them before they realized I was there. It may be that we are in each other's search direction. The idea is that it's better if you find them before they find you, because there's going to be a bonus in combat. So combat, if it happens again, if at least one finds another, and then we roll dice, meaning that combat is still going to involve both parties. Both are going to attack and take damage and possibly inflict damage, even if only one of you is in the other side's search. But again, having that situation, I find you, you don't find me, gives me a bonus on the attack table. But before we resolve the attack table, we look at the combat air patrol phase, because, again, those air patrol may inflict damage on incoming attacker planes. Pretty simple. Remember the points that you assigned, there. That will tell you the line of this column that you use. And for the Japanese, they will use the amount of combat air patrol that is indicated by their event. And so simply you roll for the combat air patrol, the Japanese against you, and yours against them. Look at the line corresponding to the combat air patrol for that side, roll a die, cross-reference, and apply the result, which will be a number of attacking plane losses and possibly a number of combat air patrol fighters losses. Just like that. Mark the boxes of what was lost. So you inflict those on both, you roll for them against you and yourself against them, and then basically you do the same procedure here, in which the Japanese will attack you. So you look at their attack force, roll cross-reference, apply the result, and then you look at your attack force, cross-reference, roll the die, and apply the result. And your force is the total of the bombers that you still have, plus the remaining fighters that you have that were not assigned to combat air patrol. So, this is the idea. Each turn, commit to combat air patrol and direction of search, apply the Japanese event, which will include their movement and will tell you where they're searching. Move your own ships. I should have mentioned that. Your ships move by 1 or 2 squares. All movement is orthogonal. You can spend fuel to move an extra movement. After a movement is resolved, you look at the search grids and you decide and you see if combat happens. And again, if you have somebody in your grid and they don't have you in your search grid, then you will have a bonus of +2 on the attack table, which can be really, really important. This is how you play Coral Sea Solitaire. These are not all the rules, of course. I don't film full tutorials, but I hope I gave you a general sense of the game. And I hope that that will help you get started with the game if you decide to try it. Because I find it a very enjoyable game now. I was not enjoying it at all as I was trying to learn it. The rules, there aren't so many rules, so like 6 pages of rules, and I play games that are very similar, so I thought I'm gonna get started in no time. But the rules felt frustrating. Somehow they neglected to really get into enough detail to really allow me to play without too much trouble. I read the rules, so everything seemed clear. I started playing it and I started stumbling on so many little cases and situations that were not covered. So that was a lot annoying and frustrating. At the end, I may have come up with some interpretations that will turn out were house rules instead of me implementing the rules. But you know what? If what I showed you is a mix of the actual rules and my unaware house rules, it works for me. So that's good enough, I guess, because it is a nice game. I definitely enjoyed roll and write games. And I like the fact in the last couple of years we have had one of my favorite styles of games, which is word games, together with one of my favorite mechanics, roll and write. Booyah, perfect. So roll and write word games, now it's a thing, and it's nice that it can be applied to so many different situations, from land battles like Waterloo to now naval warfare. Aircraft carrier warfare. It's really nice. As for this game specific, I think it implements the general idea of roll and write really, really well, and it creates a nice variety of situations. There really are a lot of different scenarios here, and the different victory conditions and objectives will cause very different styles of gameplay. If your victory condition is just to destroy the convoy and not many of the enemy carriers, well, you gotta go for the convoy. You have to cross the board all the way there, and you have to try to figure out how long it will take you so that you meet with the convoy there. And on the way there, probably you'll make contact with the Japanese forces. Or you ignore the convoy because the victory conditions tell you that you need to sink every Japanese carrier. That's a whole different situation. In one case, you're trying to evade the enemies and make as little contact as possible. In the other one, you're the hunter and you're going after them. And the combat is brutal. Combat, there's no doubt, and that's how it should be. Once these naval carriers make contact, it should work that way. And at the beginning is not too bad. You think, okay, the Lexus is taking a couple of hits, the Yorton is taking a couple of hits, and you're really trying to spread the pain as much as possible for as long as possible. So you often have this tag team situation. I'm going to send the Lexington in. Oh, the Lexington now is taking some hits, but hasn't quite finished off the Japanese task force. So I'm going to try to avoid contact with the Lexington for a while I send in the Yorktown. And maybe I send the Lexington to attack the convoy, which is not as dangerous. So there's a nice, interesting flow there in which somebody will tend to be the hunter and the hunted, but because of the tag team element, even members of the hunting team will from time to time want to avoid contact and then maybe come back. And I was a little worried about the movement of the Japanese carriers. I thought if it's too random, then it's going to be crazy. I'm just going to spend the time chasing them around the board. But the board is not that big, and ultimately I still have to see a situation where I'm just chasing them around all game. I can spend extra fuel to catch up with them, but again, also they're at the borders of the map, so they can't go all that far. So I found that the random movements of the Japanese, from time to time, they will trick you and they will mysteriously come out of nowhere. You didn't realize that if they move that way and they search that way, boom, they're right at your back door. And other times, they slow down and you're able to catch them. It is random and you see it is random, but it still works pretty well in creating a sense of uncertainty. And maybe you only have a couple of turns to finish them off, and they are running fast. I found that it creates tension without throwing the game out of balance. And that sense of like tension, the hunting, then the big catastrophic collision, and then a moment in which people are regrouping and again dancing and waltzing around the board before possibly other further fights. That is very interesting. It makes for a nice, interesting flow. Of course, once you make contact, combat is going to be procedural. You're rolling dice and adjusting things, but that still seems to fit the theme. You can have up to 2 rounds of combat. The first is mandatory once you make contact. The other one, it means that both sides have to stay. Both sides have a chance of leaving. You will roll dice to see if that also happens. And so it can be catastrophic or more catastrophic if it's 2 rounds of combat. Overall, I think Coral Sea to be a really fun game. Once you learn how to play it, it's really simple, or that within the war game range, comparing to a lot of other war games out there, is definitely simple, even a war game for beginners. But the rules just make learning the game a lot harder than it could and it should. Once you move past that bump, then Coral Sea is a really fun, really engaging roll and play, roll and write war game.